And Major Garrett there is in Panama City, Florida for us this morning. And Major, again, in your piece, we see Trump making repeated references now to the possibility of losing the election in front even of what seemed another raucous crowd there in Florida yesterday. It is perhaps a whistle of a different sort, not just a suggestion that perhaps an election might be rigged, but now speaking to a theoretical result. What do you make in the, if nothing else, shift in rhetoric?
Well, one of the interesting things about covering Donald Trump is you know what he's thinking because he says it right in front of you. I mean, you know what his sort of internal thought patterns are about the course or direction of his campaign because he spews them forth on a regular basis. And so we got last night, and I know this is new because I go to these rallies day after day after day after day. My ear is attuned to things I haven't heard Donald Trump say before. And yes, he has occasionally made a glancing reference to if I lose, it would be really bad or it'd be a waste of time. But last night, it was different. There were numerous and somewhat disjointed, meaning they were distributed throughout his remarks, references to losing Florida, losing the election, and this not working out. And it was, in its own way, a call to action to the more than 10,000 supporters who are here in Panama City waiting hour upon hour to see Trump, to get out and register, make sure they vote, and not let this opportunity, which Trump said is a big one, the last he said you have to save your country, from happening. Go out and help me win. That, I think, reflects two things. Trump is now beginning to understand the pressures of not having Republicans alongside rowing in the same direction is a problem. It does create logistical, field operation, and overall messaging problems for him. And he has to know that his reliance up until this time, and really he has no other choice, on the Republican National Committee to supervise and carry out much of those field operations is now in more question than it was, say, a week ago. And all of that might create an undertow for Trump, not to mention all the other problems he's having with statewide polls in the key battleground states. So I think it reflects genuine anxiety on Trump's part that this may not work out, and his supporters need to fill the breach on his behalf. And when candidates talk to their supporters this way, they are both doing the desperation thing and the realistic thing. And in Trump's case, I think they're merging in ways we haven't seen in public before.
You know, it's interesting. I know you're referring in part to the new survey out from USA Today that shows that some 1/4 of all Republican lawmakers are, again, not endorsing Donald Trump. Interestingly, you know, that number sort of reflects the percentage of likely Republican voters who at this point support Donald Trump. It's roughly in the low to mid 70s. Of course, that number needs to be in the low 90s for any GOP candidate. Certainly for Donald Trump, perhaps now more than ever, it needs to be in the mid to high 90s to have a chance in November. It's a number, though, with regard to leadership that is without precedent. He has said repeatedly he doesn't need Paul Ryan, he doesn't need anybody else to stand by him. I mean, is it your sense perhaps yesterday that we saw a candidate who now knows perhaps that's not true?
That he's coming to terms with the fact that it may not be true. Remember, in good times, and I put this on my Twitter feed yesterday, Trump said, I don't need the establishment. I don't need Paul Ryan. I don't need Mitch McConnell. I don't need Reince Priebus. I don't need any of these people. In good times, Trump feels he can do all of this with his supporters, himself, his little campaign, and nothing else. Now Trump is beginning to realize, or at least his rhetoric is beginning to reflect, that he might be realizing that this is a much larger competition requiring much more hands on deck than winning the primaries were, and a general election is, as many of us have said, a fundamentally different operation. And without Republicans helping and reinforcing and deploying their assets on behalf of a nominee, it's all the more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult. And it's interesting mathematically to see this rough alignment, Josh, in the number of non-endorsers and that resistant realm of the Republican Party not willing to support Trump on the ballot, about 25%. It's not often that things line up that statistically neatly, but they have in this case. And it is, as you said, without any precedent in modern presidential history for a nominee to be this estranged from so many elected members of his party. Now, that does reinforce one aspect of Trumpism. I'm against the establishment. I'm something completely new. I scare a lot of entrenched politicians. Fair enough. But maybe those entrenched politicians, if they're aligned with you, can help you more than hurt you. We're going to find out.
Fear is not always the greatest of motivators. Major Garrett, as always, we do appreciate the time. But Major, before we let you go, because you are always going, we know you're on the road to somewhere. So today we are launching a new segment called, appropriately enough, On the Road to Somewhere with Major Garrett.